Welcome back to Earl Hill Studios. We're on part 2 now of the Redgum coffee table restoration. As you can see in the footage with us, the whole deal had to be pretty much ripped down, flattened out again, rejointed, and just to maintain some thickness in there. So once we've got that all rejointed, and we shall fill it up with resin patching and glue it all back together, ready to take on the finishing touches and legs. See here, we've got the boards put back together. It's all looking pretty good joint. Don't have a problem with that. A bit gnarly here and there, but we can manage that. So in the meantime, we'll get some. I'll get some masking tape on here because this will be tipped upside down and flipped over, and resin filled from the back to start with, just to fill up some of those voids. To clean these edges up, we're going to use this Cutsaw. It's not a Cutsaw. This is an imitation Cutsaw. Cutsaw's a brand. It's like a wood grinder wood carving. I've used it once or twice, and it's pretty rugged, pretty good. So I'll just try and clean all these black edges off. If it is a bit harsh, we can always just revert to a sander or some other method. But in the meantime, I'll just try and get that blackness off and clean up those edges. So what we need to do is just tidy up these openings here. There's a few screw holes here. The whole idea is just to get it a little bit of something for the resin to key in. Not absolutely critical. This is the underneath of the table, so the legs will be going on here. So it's not critical that we do that, but I'd like to pour some resin down this side and just see whether it just fills that whole void, masked up underneath. I'd also like to try a bit of a different method with the resin. I'm just going to pour glass resin. I'm not going to tint it at all, but I'm just going to use the wood dust from the Redgum to try and colour it and match it and see if that works for me. Normally I'd use a little bit of black pigment or something, or brown pigment. This is actually quite red. This whole table is red gum. So black would work. I'm not sure about trying to match it with the standard brown pigment in the resin. So here we go. So I won't bore you with the whole process of cleaning these cracks and voids out, screw holes, bolt holes and what have you. I've got the trusty Marquita die grinder out there, and that actually has a nice cut saw bit in there that chews it out very nicely and efficiently. So there's about 30-40 minutes work in that, so I won't bore you with the rest. So can't really talk while I'm masked up, but I do use the respirator for this stuff. Is very allergic. I'm very allergic, to be honest. Getting some wood dust and chips in there from the Redgum sanding, and gratuitous ad there for Omo washing machine capsules. But yeah, that'll all get mixed up and then we'll pour away. Bit of a process, good 3 or 4 minutes stir up in there. Once we get it nice and thick and perhaps the colour we want, then we'll start pouring that in the holes. It's a bit of a process. Obviously, they do sink, so they get air holes and what have you in them, so they do sink, and so there's usually a secondary process as well. All time and process. So here we go. We've got a bit of our casting resin, which we've got as a product of Norglass. I like to use that. I can buy it locally up here in Cairns, so I don't have to get it shipped up. I've put a bit of wood dust of the mahogany and Redgum wood dust in that mix, and we'll have a bit of a closer look in a minute. But you can see there's a few lumps and bumps, but that's fine. They'll grind off. And you can see here where I've actually sanded that back a little bit this morning with the big Rotex. That'll take it down. Got about 40 grit on that. And that's going to work out nicely. The joint is superb, really happy with the joint. And the fill itself, I think probably what I'll do is I'll just try and filter that out and use the dust only. See, in there there's wood, dust and chips. A few little wood chips, so I'll just get it to dust, and probably not as much for the top. I might not put as much in, but the finishing is really great. I love it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Still ways to go, of course. So next procedure, yeah. So we'll just backfill a few of these ones where it's sunk in into the timber a little bit. You never know where it's just going to finish. So quite often you have to do that second pour just to get that finished. So the procedure continues on. We've got the table resined up. All the resin has been sort of tried to be colour matched with the wood dust from the table itself. So it's matching up reasonably well. It might be a little bit dark, but I don't think that's too much of an issue. I think that'll work well. So let's have a look, see what we've got here. Looking really good. Let me see. Oh wow, I'm loving that. Absolutely loving this. This is going to be absolutely spectacular. Look at that. Oh. There's a lovely bits of fiddleback in here. Just some stress fractures in the timber that just come up with little ripples. Can't wait to get this up in someone's lounger. It's just going to be delightful. Okay, so we're back in the shop here at Earl Hill Studios, and putting the last bits and pieces together for the Redgum coffee table. So just to explain, we worked on the legs, and to be honest, I wasn't too happy with just the amount of work going into these. Still a lot of work to do there. Some of the other legs were a lot worse than that. So I went ahead and bought two big steel legs. So they will sit on there, something like that, on each end, and that'll be. I think that'll look good. Nice black, simple, and we don't have to worry about an apron on the table, so that'll be fine. So just to explain, what we've got to do is to use the hard burnishing oil. Is basically tung oil. So we're already at about 80 grit, so we'll go to 120 granite with the Festool machine there. Then 150, we're right up through the grits, 180, 240, 400. 400 is about where we'll stop, and then we'll get the oil in. I won't bore you with all the sanding, but once we get a nice finish at 400, avoiding all little squiggle marks and what have you, scratches, we'll get a coat of this in. What happens then is we leave that soak in for, it's really hard wood, so we need a couple of hours, and then we come back with 600 and go over that and get a nice paste on there, and then 1200. But we'll also put a second coat on that as well. Once that's dry, a very light coat, and then we go to, like I say, the 600 and 1200. That should give us, I'm hoping that will give us a nice satin finish. So I'm going to give, this is the bottom, so I'm going to give that a work over first up, and get that, try and get that satin finish. We may even have to go up to a 1200 grit. These are wet and dry paper. So there you go. We'll see how we go. Okay, welcome back to Earl Hill Studios. We've got a process now to get, this is the underside of our table. So I'll get this done first, and then we'll move on to flip that over. Once we get the legs on, I might even check them in, then we'll flip it over and we'll do the final coat on the top. So in the meantime, you might notice there's a little bit of dust on there, wood dust. That's what's called for in the preparation. So we've just got to put a bit of this oil on. It's a hardwood, so we're going to leave it there for a couple of hours just to let that go on, and then we'll come back and get that slurry paste going with the 1200 and 1500 grits. The slurry paste and that process will hopefully give us a satin finish. So I'm going to give the bottom here. We don't really need to be too concerned about how this is going to work out, because this is underneath. It's really given me a chance to have a trial run with the burnishing oil, and this is a great part of this whole process. The final stages where things just start popping out. The grain, if I just pour this on now and start spreading, the grain's just going to pop out there. Look at that. Look at that. That is just beautiful. I'm going to put quite a liberal coat on here because really give it a couple of hours for it all to soak in. And like I say, given it really is a hard wood, it's just going to take a little while. So I don't think we'll go through into too much more of the detail here. We'll cover the burnishing process once we get to the top of the table as well. Right now we're just readying the piece to have the legs attached, and we don't need to really burnish this in. It's just at the bottom of the table. It just shows you where we're going to end up at the top. Right, so we're back in the workshop. We've got the bottom of the table all oiled up. It's come up really nice. That'll buff up nicely, actually. I'm not going to worry about buffing it up and putting a sheen on this because it is the underside. That's worked out really well. I've checked in the plates here for the legs. Just give it a nice professional, really nice finish. And we'll get some threaded inserts in there, which we'll be able to disassemble the legs to These can be a bit tricky. If the hole's a bit slightly undersized, you can very easily snap these off while you're trying to get them in. Very hesitant to over tighten that, because if they do break, it's all over. Anyway, okay, so there we have it. We've got the bottom done, underneath, legs attached. A few little knobs there just to allow you to straighten it up a bit if you need to. Like I say, I won't buff this up because it is the underside, but that's all done. We'll flip that over and ready the top. Okay, so we keep the same sanding process as we did with the bottom. So we go through all the grits, 120, 150, 180, 240, 320, up to 400. And once we get that 400 grit done, there should be no squiggles, no scratches, nothing on that top. And you note there, I just leave the wood dust on that 400 grit paper. There's a good reason for that, and we'll show you shortly. Right, so after a lot of hard work, painstaking as it is, we get that first coat of oil on the top, a nice thick coat, and we've been through all that before with the underside. So just finishing off here. Once we get this coat on, we'll give it a couple of hours. Come back and we'll put another light coat on, which will soak in for about 15 minutes, and then we can start the burnishing process. Stay tuned. Okay, so the second coat's just dried out. Give that 15 minutes, and then we'll get the old disc, which has got a little bit of dust and residue over there from the final sanding. Yeah. And then we start the burnishing process. So ultimately, we're trying to form a slurry on here. So the process continues on with the 400 grit paper from the final sanding, with a little bit of wood dust in it. You can see there that we've formed up a slurry. It's after about 10 minutes, mind you. I've shortcutted a lot of the footage there. So once we get that slurry worked up, and there's a lot of friction heat gone into the timber, it's actually soaking into the timber. So what we need to do now is just get a nice white lint-proof paper on there, pop it on underneath the sander, and just get all the moisture that's come up, been drawn up out of the timber from the oil. We'll just sand that off. That in turn will give us a standard matte finish. we've looked out for a satin finish. So I want to repeat that process using 1200 and then 1500 grit wet and dry sandpaper, and that should get us our result. So we're continuing on. You can see there the amount of oil that's just coming up in those pads. Once this is finished, actually, you probably should, even though it'll be dry overnight, it won't cure for a couple of weeks. So you really don't want to put too much on it for a couple of weeks until that burnishing oil hardens up. And of course, by a lamb's wool buffer. So here we go. We have the finished product of the Earl Hill Studios coffee table, Redgum coffee table restoration. Pretty happy with the finish. You can sort of see the joints if you really look, but grains all matched up, the oil burnished in nicely, and I seem to have a reasonably satin finish, a nice sheen on it. So I guess we'll see where it all ends up. So thanks to everyone for following us through with this journey on the cantankerous old grizzly old Redgum coffee table, which we've nicknamed Grizzly for that very reason. It's very much a rebuild, a reconstruction of a fairly grisly old piece of Redgum. So we've got it back to looking fantastic. As we step through the whole process, which you've seen if you've either been following me or watching the shorts on YouTube. There's a full version on YouTube now. Part 1's already up. Part 2 is, this is it. So yeah, all done, ready to get on with our next project. But look, if you're up for a look at it, we're up in far north Queensland, Cairns, up on the northern beaches. So if you're up this way and you want to have a look at it, if you're interested in buying it, if you want to have something built, a family heirloom resurrected, just give us a shout, because that's what we do here at Earl Hill Studios. You can have a look at some of my other work at hashtag Earl Hill Studios. You'll see on the website some pictures, recent projects. You'll also see on Facebook all of the followers, the shorts on there, I guess, the reels. So have a look at that and see what you think. In the meantime, that's it for now. Time for a coffee. It's a bit early in the day, otherwise I'd be having a beer, and a biscuit. And we're all good. Looking for our next project. So thanks for watching.